Right View, The Enlightenment of the Buddha is a book written by Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche. In this book, Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche uses the simplest of language to explain the four core Buddhist insights and help readers examine whether they have the right view of the Buddha. The text is simple and easy to understand, yet contains layers of profound meaning. Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, a Bhutanese Lama of the Sakya school of Tibetan Buddhism and the principal holder of the third Khyentse lineage, explains in the simplest terms the four core Buddhist teachings. He uses the simplest language to illustrate the core Buddhist insight of the Four Noble Truths, with seemingly simple words that contain layers of profound meaning. Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche is also a renowned director in the film industry. The process of enlightenment is to shed the layers of obstacles brought by delusions, to understand the fickleness and impermanence of karma, and then to let go of my insistence and move towards the path of awakening. Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, who upholds the best tradition and education of Tibetan Buddhism, is world-renowned as one of the most innovative and creative young Tibetan Buddhist teachers in the world today. He has written and directed two Buddhist-themed films, The World Cup on the Mountain and The Traveler and the Magician. Dzong Sarjamyang Khyentse Rinpoche's films, with their amazing energy and rich humanism, have been a breath of fresh air, winning accolades and awards at major film festivals around the world, and nurturing a following of staff and fans. The story of the Buddha. The Buddha, originally named Siddhartha Gautama, was the crown prince of the kingdom of Kabilia. His father, King Joram, did his best to satisfy his needs and wanted him to inherit the throne. However, as Siddhartha grew into a man, he became curious about the outside world. On several of his trips, he witnessed illness, aging, and death, and these experiences had a profound effect on him. Siddhartha was extremely frustrated with his inability to protect his loved ones from certain death. Eventually, he decided to give up his throne and choose the path of asceticism. Prince Siddhartha explores the story of human nature under the Bodhi tree. There, after a long period of contemplation, he finally realized that all things are made up of more than two elements. When two or more elements are brought together, new phenomena are created. These final products do not exist independently of their individual elements. It is the greatest deception to believe that it really exists independently. He also realized that this is true not only of human experience, but of everything, of the whole world, of the whole universe, that everything is interdependent, and that therefore everything changes. Through these realizations, Siddhartha finally found a way to release the pain of death. Siddhartha had practiced under a tree for 6 years, but eventually he realized that this was not the right path. He decided to rise from his ascetic state and accepted an offering of milk from a shepherdess, a move that shocked his companions. Man has always tried to find happiness, not only through material possessions, but also through religious means. However, these seemingly beneficial principles can become extreme and harsh religious dogma, causing unnecessary guilt and low self-esteem. Mankind relies not only on organized religion, but also on secular wisdom, or even political slogans, to achieve happiness and remove suffering. Siddhartha was also trying to eradicate suffering. He explored suffering with an open mind and, through diligent contemplation, discovered that it is the human emotions that cause suffering. In fact, emotion is suffering. In any case, directly or indirectly, all emotions arise from selfishness, that is, they are all related to attachment to the self. Further, he found that emotions, although seemingly real, are not part of a person's original being. They are not innate, nor are they a curse or implant imposed on us by someone or some god. Emotions arise when certain causes and effects come together. So Siddhartha found his solution: awareness. If you are serious about eradicating suffering, you must cultivate awareness, pay attention to your emotions, and learn how to avoid being aroused. How Siddhartha came to realize the illusory nature of all phenomena through meditation. He recalls the past life of the court, the banquets and peacock gardens, his friends and family, and learns that the so-called family is like an inn or a hotel, where different travelers move in and have a short association. Ultimately, these gatherings of people will disperse when death comes or sooner. Siddhartha was able to see clearly that the idea of family, love, and togetherness, and all the fascinating phenomena of court life, were easy to get caught up in. He saw what no one else could see, just as an adult sees the ring of fire, and knew that it was only an illusion, a harmony, a part that had no essence. But like a benevolent parent, Siddhartha did not feel arrogant or superior because of the children's confusion, but saw that there is no evil, no good, no fault in this cycle, and therefore did not blame, which led to his liberation, with great compassion. Siddhartha was now able to see that his body was not of its own nature. In his eyes, the circle of fire and the body have the same nature. If one believes that one of them is real, whether transient or permanent, then one's belief is rooted in misunderstanding. In this way, one loses awareness, which is what Buddhists call ignorance. It is from this ignorance that our emotions arise. There are countless kinds of emotions in this world. Every moment, countless emotions arise from our misjudgment, prejudice, and ignorance. Emotions can be childish, absurd, arrogant, distorted, or even pathological. Emotions arise when certain specific causes and effects come together. All the different emotions and their results come from a misunderstanding, and this misunderstanding comes from one source, the source of all ignorance, attachment to the ego. The ego is just another misunderstanding. When we look at our body, color, our feelings, receptivity, our thoughts, imagination, our actions, behavior, and our consciousness, awareness, we usually create a concept of the ego. People are conditioned to regard this concept as constant and real. Siddhartha realized that there is no separate entity, either inside or outside the body, that can be called the self. Like the illusion of vision in the circle of fire, the ego is illusory. It is fallacious, fundamentally wrong, and does not exist. But just as we are confused by the ring of fire, so we are all confused by the ego. To cling to the fallacious ego is the absurd act of ignorance. It keeps creating more and more ignorance, leading to all kinds of suffering and disappointment. When Siddhartha discovered that there is no ego, he also discovered that there is no fundamental evil, but only ignorance. He pondered in particular how ignorance creates the label of the self, attaches it to the completely ungrounded reality of harmony, gives it importance, and then tries desperately to protect it. He finds that this ignorance leads directly to suffering and harm. Ignorance simply means not knowing the facts, or not knowing the facts correctly, or not knowing them completely. All these forms of ignorance lead to misunderstanding and misjudgment, overestimation and underestimation. Any act done from ignorance is an adventure. We cannot have confidence when we act without knowing or fully understanding. Our fundamental insecurity is thus creating all these various emotions, named or unnamed, known or unknown. Siddhartha realized that the ego does not exist independently, but is only a label, and therefore clinging to the ego is ignorance. Although the label ego may be unfounded, destroying it is not an easy task. Clinging to this label called the ego is the most difficult of all concepts to break down. The story of Siddhartha's destruction of the demon king Moloch is a symbol of his discovery of the fallacy of the ego. In the story, Moloch is a handsome and powerful warrior who is invincible, which is an apt metaphor. The ego, like Moloch, is powerful and insatiable, self-centered and deceitful, eager for attention, quick-witted and vain. It is hard to remember that the ego, like the illusion of a ring of fire, is a blend, does not exist independently, and is good at changing. Habits make us weak and therefore unable to fight the ego. Even insignificant habits can be very strong. However, the habits of the ego are not as simple as an addiction to cigarettes. We have been addicted to the ego since the time we could not recall. It is our way of identifying with ourselves. It is our favorite, but sometimes it is our most hated. It is what we try to prove with our best efforts. Almost everything we do, think, or have, including the path of our mind, is to confirm its existence. The Buddha was not a pessimist or a doomsayer, he was a man of practicality. When he said that all harmony is impermanent, he didn't see that as bad news, but as simple, scientific fact. According to your view, and understanding of this fact, impermanence can be a doorway to enlightenment and hope, glory and success. By recognizing the instability of karma, we understand that we have the power to transform obstacles and accomplish the impossible. You can change not only the external physical world, but also the internal emotional world. The concept of impermanence is not a prophecy of the end of the world or the apocalypse, nor is it a punishment for human sin. It has no inherent positive or negative aspects, but is simply part of the process of reconciliation. What is life? From our understanding of impermanence, the answer to this question should be obvious. Life is a vast phenomenon of harmony, and therefore life is impermanent. Within these forms of life, there is a great distinction between the definitions of suffering and pleasure, even in the relatively small scope of humanity. Many of us learn the definitions of pleasure and pain from the society in which we live. The social order governs our measure of satisfaction. This habit of treating group standards as personal standards begins to develop at an early age. Individually and culturally, we adopt external and extrinsic methods to achieve happiness and overcome suffering, not realizing that these methods often lead to results that are not what we want. Our maladjustment brings new suffering because we not only continue to suffer, but we feel more alienated from our lives and unable to integrate into the system. When we are struck by the arrow of desire, all common sense, composure, and clarity are lost, and false dignity, depravity, and immorality slowly creep in. The poisoned person will do anything to get what he wants. Greed can also manifest itself as a desire for power. Leaders who cling to this greed are oblivious to how their desire for power destroys the world. This book helps readers examine whether they have the right view of the Buddha's teachings, the core of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths. The text is simple and easy to understand, yet contains layers of deep and simple meaning. The writing is flowing, humorous, and well written. Behind the light-hearted words, there is wisdom to guide sentient beings out of their fundamental dilemmas. This seemingly simple book conveys the core teachings of Buddhism, the four Dharma seals of Buddhism, and guides you through your personal thinking and mindset. Dzongsar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche explains the concepts of cause and effect and karma in Buddhism in an insightful manner. He uses vivid examples and easy-to-understand language to help readers understand these abstract concepts. The book also provides many practical suggestions to help readers apply these concepts in their daily lives. In addition, the book contains many interesting stories and fables that make the reading process both fun and inspiring. Overall, Right View, The Buddha's Enlightenment is a valuable book, especially for those who want to learn more about Buddhism and meditation practices. It provides doctrinal and practical guidelines to help readers better understand and practice the core values of Buddhism. At the same time, it provides practical methods and suggestions to help readers put these teachings into practice in their daily lives.